Well, I think first of all, what every company wants is to deliver a correct product that fulfills the requirement of their customers, because that means good business, and good business means future orders, future offers that they can make. And I think to understand and to know the product compliance of your customer is a key factor in that whole process. So indeed, product compliance is one of the most important things in doing a good business as a retailer or a product producer. As long as the technical file is limited to requirements such as fiber composition or appearances or functionalities, I think the challenges are quite limited, because that's easy to communicate through whole supply chains. Everybody knows what they are talking about. The moment that in a technical file its requirements are entering, such as additional chemical demands, such as the company's own RSIL or restricted substance list, or legislation compliancy is demanded in a technical file, then it's becoming more and more difficult, because it's a very technical matter. It's also something that changes very, very often, and it's always evolving, and the next RSL is also always bigger than the other one. So then it's becoming more and more difficult to communicate through that supply chain. For instance, if you ask REACH compliance to your supplier in the Far East, REACH compliance is completely out of the scope of that producer of textiles in China or somewhere else in the Far East. That means that it is difficult for him and for us to communicate, and then you're getting the difficulties and the challenges in your supply chain to make sure that everybody is understanding those specific requirements in the technical file. Well, one of the possibilities to bypass those individual chemical demands or those individual legislation compliances is by using a label system, for instance like Oeko-Tex. Oeko-Tex requirements are based, among other criteria, but are based on the criteria of fulfilling the requirements in legislation, European and non-European legislation. So that means that if you have a valid Oeko-Tex certificate and you fulfill all the Oeko-Tex requirements, you also fulfill those individual legislation requirements or the RSL demands, the restricted substance list demands of your clients. And that's also why we see that more and more big retailers, big companies, use a valid Oeko-Tex certificate as a possible proof for their own individual technical file demands, for their own RSL demands. And as Centexbel, the company I work for, is one of the 14 institutes recognized worldwide by Oeko-Tex for certification and for testing, that means that you can come to our company, to Centexbel, for Oeko-Tex certification, starting with the application form up to the certification as such, and also for the testing that is in somewhere in the middle, in between the whole process. So Centexbel could be your partner if you want Oeko-Tex. Besides that Oeko-Tex certification, Centexbel has also developed its own testing methods with only one goal or only one purpose, and that's to make sure that you can show your customer that they are indeed, or that you indeed fulfill their requirements on chemical requirements or on legislation compliance. Centexbel has more than 70 years of experience of testing chemicals, textile products, composites, plastics, toys and so on. So we use that information and we use that knowledge that we have to make sure that our test screening methods are no longer testing everything on everything. What I mean is that it's no longer useful to test every chemical compound on every end product. What we do is we use a practical and pragmatic point of view in testing and screening methods, and we only test those relevant chemicals for those relevant products. That means that obviously the price will be much lower, but also the timing, the deadlines will be much shorter, because we have a more pragmatic point of approach to our testing approach. I think perhaps the most important advice that I could give is make sure that you're well informed. That's very important. And make sure that you only get the relevant information for your specific case. If I may give an example, for instance, around REACH, there's a lot of information going on. But if you are a retailer or a producer of textile products, for instance, only a small part of that information is really relevant for your business model. And once you get that correct and relevant information, make sure that you spread that information throughout the whole supply chain, so that everybody knows the correct and relevant information. And once you have achieved that, and you make sure that it's well stated within the whole supply chain that this is important for you, for instance the REACH compliancy, and that you will stand for it and that you will live by it, then once you have achieved that, it's our experience that you can come to an open and good communication throughout the whole supply chain, which is, I think, a key factor for every business model and for every good business, is that there has to be a good communication along that whole supply chain. And a good, correct communication is one of the asset points of that story.